Dorcas was not born into luxury. She came from a village where the earth was cracked, and the children's laughter was silenced by hunger. At 19, her mother sold the last piece of land to pay for her father's burial. When nothing else remained, Dorcas was sent to the city to work as a housemaid. The mansion she walked into was made of glass and secrets. Jackson lived there, the master of the house, a man in his late 30s, tall, handsome, but burdened with a kind of loneliness that money could not cure. His wife, Clarissa, was rarely at home. She was a socialite, living in newspapers and champagne halls. The mansion, though large, felt empty. It echoed with silence. Dorcas's first duty was to clean the long staircase. She did not see Jackson watching her from the balcony above. She moved with a gentleness that startled him. There was something fragile yet fierce in her presence. And so, their story began. It happened on a rainy evening. Dorcas was carrying wet clothes from the line when she slipped. Jackson rushed forward, catching her before she fell. His arms wrapped around her trembling body. It was only a second, yet it lasted a lifetime. Her breath brushed against his neck, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years, warmth. Not the kind bought in hotel rooms, not the kind faked in magazine photos, but a human warmth that whispered, "You are not alone." Dorcas pulled away quickly, bowing her head. "Forgive me, sir," she whispered. But Jackson stood frozen. Forgiveness was not the word he wanted to give her. He wanted to thank her for reminding him he still had a heart. Weeks passed. Jackson found reasons to be home more often. He would linger in the kitchen as Dorcas prepared meals. He would pass through the garden when she watered the flowers. They spoke little, but in their silence, something louder than words was born. One night, Jackson returned from a party. His wife had left him alone again. The mansion felt like a coffin. Dorcas was awake, scrubbing the floors. He paused, watching her hands soaked in soap water, her back bent in labor. He knelt beside her. "You shouldn't be doing this so late," he said softly. She looked at him, startled. "It is my duty, sir." "No," he whispered, his voice breaking. "It is my shame." The tears in his eyes betrayed him. Dorcas, moved by his pain, did the unthinkable. She reached out and touched his hand. It was a simple touch, but it unlocked every door he had closed inside him. He pulled her into an embrace. Their hearts collided like broken glass, sharp but beautiful. That night, they crossed the line. The walls of the mansion are not made of stone. They are made of ears. One of the other servants saw them. Rumors began to crawl like snakes. It reached Clarissa. The scandal broke in the worst way. Clarissa returned, furious, screaming accusations. Dorcas was dragged out, beaten with words, and thrown into the streets. But Jackson did not deny it. He stood tall, facing his wife's wrath. "Yes," he said, "I love her." Those words destroyed everything. His marriage, his reputation, his business partners whispered behind his back. The newspapers called him a disgrace. Dorcas, meanwhile, suffered even more. She had no family in the city, no place to hide. The world branded her with a scarlet letter, housemaid turned whore. Yet through the humiliation, Jackson sought her out. He found her living in a small rented room, hungry and broken. He knelt before her again. "Come with me," he begged. "Let us face the world together." But Dorcas shook her head. "Love should not destroy," she whispered. "And I have destroyed you." Dorcas disappeared. Jackson searched everywhere. He walked the streets at night, asking strangers if they had seen her. But Dorcas had vanished like smoke. Months turned into years. Jackson's wealth shrank, his friends abandoned him, and Clarissa divorced him. But his heart never moved on. Every room reminded him of Dorcas. Every silence carried her voice. Dorcas, meanwhile, had gone back to her village. She worked as a school helper, teaching little children how to write the names. She lived in poverty, but with dignity. Still, every night, when the lamps went out, she cried into her pillow, remembering the man who had embraced her not as a master, but as a soul equal to his. She had sacrificed love for his salvation, yet she was the one who carried the pain. 10 years later, fate intervened. Jackson, now gray-haired and thinner, came to the village on a business errand. He saw her by chance, Dorcas, carrying books for the children. Their eyes met, and the world collapsed. She froze. He trembled. Time had changed their faces but not their hearts. "Dorcas," he whispered, his voice breaking like an old violin. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream, but instead, tears betrayed her. They fell freely, carving rivers down her face. "Why did you leave me?" he asked. "Because love is not always about having," she said. "Sometimes it is about letting go." He stepped closer, his hands shaking. "And yet I am still here, waiting. 10 years, Dorcas. 10 years without your embrace. The village wind howled, the children's laughter echoed, and Dorcas, for the first time, allowed herself to fall into his arms once again. They spent a short season together, but life is crueler than dreams. Dorcas grew sick, the years of hardship had taken their toll, her body weakened, and the doctor's medicines were useless. Jackson stayed by her side, holding her hands as if he could keep her alive through the warmth of his palms. "Don't leave me," he begged. She smiled faintly. "We were always doomed, Jackson. But doomed love can still be beautiful." On her last night, rain fell just as it had the first evening they embraced. She whispered to him, her voice fading, "Thank you, for teaching me the power of an embrace." And with that, Dorcas closed her eyes forever. Jackson held her body, rocking back and forth, crying like a child. In that moment, the scandal, the pain, the sacrifices, all of it melted into one truth: love is never measured by how long it lasts, but by how deeply it is felt. Jackson never remarried. He built a small school in Dorcas's village, naming it the House of Embrace. Every child who studied there carried the legacy of a woman who had lived, suffered, and loved with all her heart. And though Dorcas was gone, her presence lingered, in the wind, in the children's laughter, and in Jackson's memory. It was a love stained with scandal, scarred with pain, but sealed with sacrifice. And in the end, it was love that lived forever.